Well, good afternoon and welcome to our IT Nation Share event. Today's focus is around cybersecurity, which is obviously a topic that me and my guest speakers today feel very passionate about. But before I go introducing today's presenters, I wanted to take some time and also talk a little bit about housekeeping rules, right? Please take the time to rename yourself in Teams if you already haven't done so with your first and last name or the name that you used during the registrations, which hopefully would be the same. And don't be shy. We like to see people, even though we're virtual right now, we have cameras. So please feel free to turn your cameras on. And I encourage everyone to ask questions in the chat as we're going through the various topics. Make sure that you are muted so that we do limit background noise for those speakers as well. But let's talk a little bit more about today's session. I find today's session even more exciting because we asked you all to submit questions and for us to provide training around those. Needless to say that submitting questions was so well received by our attendees that we will cover as many of them as possible in today's session. But if we don't get to your actual question, please continue the conversation with your ConnectWise account manager, and they'll be able to pull in all the right resources for you. And I also encourage, once again, for you to start asking questions in the chat as we're going through the various topics. But let's talk a little bit about IT Nation Share, right? Some of you might have participated before, but IT Nation Share is an industry-known user group for gurus such as yourself to come together and where we offer networking, product training, and best practices really to our partners. Once I mentioned earlier, today's agenda will focus around the cyber overview, from which we'll deep dive into our assessment tools and share some of the best practices, because those were some of the questions that we've heard from the audience. We'll talk a little bit about SIEM requirements. We'll talk a little bit about integrations and reporting. We'll talk a little bit more in deeper about the different pieces and detection engines of EDR, and also deep visibility, which is an exciting topic as well. Now, once again, those topics have been chosen by the questions that we received from the audience today. So I'm excited to be covering those with you today. Let me take this moment now to introduce you to your presenters today. My name is Tanya Amaragic. I'm the Cybersecurity Tech Sales Manager here at ConnectWise. And with me, I have Todd Sizer, Houston Parks, Dylan Jensen, and Henry Martinez, all the team members that focus around evangelizing cybersecurity to our partners. But in addition to those various team members that you'll get introduced to in just a few minutes, we do have a special speaker with us today, a special guest that I'll introduce in just a second. But let me get the various team members to say hi to our attendees. Todd, do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tanya. So, yeah, Todd Sizer, security solution strategist, been with the company for it'll be 5 years in July, 7/11, July 11th. So, background as a technical account manager and a sales engineer, and have been fortunate enough to be, neck deep in our security offerings since we started rolling those out, even going back to the Continuum days. So, very happy to work with Jay and Drew and getting all that rolled out. And it's been, boy, what a typhoon of just solutions that we can offer to partners, and so rewarding and satisfying seeing partners take the different solutions that we make available for you to go out there and like literally grow your business and take care of your clients and take care of yourselves as well. So I'm excited to be talking to you guys today, and talking about security and Fortify in general. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Todd. Houston, do you mind giving us a quick intro of yourself?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Houston Parks. I have been with the ConnectWise organization for, about to hit my my 7-year mark. So it's been a wild journey myself. Conversely from Todd, who came from the Continuum side, I come from the legacy ConnectWise side, and I've had the opportunity to sit down and engage with folks like yourself, or maybe yourself at various events, whether those are IT Nation conferences down in Orlando. Really miss those days of being able to do that. So looking forward to those coming up. Yeah, so I've been aligned with a lot of different teams here at ConnectWise, and I always like to say, right, not to repeat really what Todd has been saying, but really. I've been through and experienced a lot of different realignments and a lot of different strategic initiatives, and now at this point in time, with just how much of an impact cybersecurity has had on all these organizations, regardless of whether or not you're an MSP, it is an important time to make sure that we are all educated and aware of the threats and what's going on in the world. So it's a really great time to be a part of ConnectWise and be able to share this information with you. So again, thank you for having me here, and I look forward to answering questions that come up, no matter where they fall in the realm of cybersecurity or how things integrate. Happy to have those conversations. So thanks again.
Thanks, Houston. Dylan, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. And nice to have everybody on the call. My name is Dylan Jensen. I actually came over from the Perch acquisition. So I was a sales engineer, solution engineer at Perch Security for quite a while. I kind of came over as the pseudo expert, I should say. I don't want to pat myself on the back or break my arm too hard, but came over. ConnectWise being a great home. They have great cybersecurity practices under their belts. I mean, they have a lot of things under the umbrella that Jay will probably release during IT Nation that I think is going to get everybody excited. But thanks for everybody getting me on the call, and thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you, Dylan. Henry.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. My name is Henry Martinez. I have been with ConnectWise in my current role as a Technical Partner Success Manager since about November of 2019, and I'm responsible for supporting all of our security-only partners from a post-sales perspective. I've been part of 2 acquisitions here through Continuum and Carver, and been here for about 3.5 years now. I've been a sales engineer for about 10 years in another life, so I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here as well. And as I mentioned, we do have a special guest with us today. His name was mentioned during the initial introductions, as many of you have heard, and our special guest today is our very own Jay Ryerse. He is our VP of Cybersecurity Initiative, part of the IT Nation umbrella. Jay, would you like to say a few words for our attendees today?
Well, thanks, Tanya, and I don't feel so special. I think I'm part of this community. I think that a lot of people on this call probably are tired of listening to me, as we get often on my soapbox all the time talking about security. But I'm thankful for all of you being here. As she mentioned, I'm VP of Cybersecurity Initiatives. I spend all my time these days on the IT Nation, but my path, kind of like Henry's, right? Because Henry was one of our early employees at Carver. So he's been with us on the journey since Carver through Continuum here into ConnectWise. And it's been a fascinating journey. And there's a few things I kind of want to talk about really quick to kind of help set the tone for today's conversation, because this isn't about us. It's more about all of you and where you fit in this conversation and what problems you're trying to solve. So when I start thinking about security, there's a few topics that kind of come to mind. The first one is, security is no longer what's next. And Tanya, if you're driving, you could click, that'd be great. Security is today. And I think you're all here because you know that. I think there's an awful lot of people that have been watching this recording afterwards. They'll be shaking their head yes, saying, yeah, we've been talking about this being an issue going back to 2015, 2016. In many cases, a lot of you picked up in 18, 19, and 20. And all the outsiders that we've been talking about and writing about have been saying, 2021 is the year of cybersecurity, and that was pre-pandemic. They were talking about that. So this picture you're seeing, people don't realize, is actually from one of our security operations centers in our Cranberry location, right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I actually took this just before moving down to Tampa, so it's kind of one of my favorite pictures because it kind of talks to the fact that people don't realize that we've got, and at this point now, because of acquisitions, between the Sienna Group, between Continuum, Strazen, and Perch, we have become the largest cybersecurity provider for services to the MSP community, dedicated only to cybersecurity and MSPs. Right. The reality is that we've got more than 200 colleagues that all we do is wake up and walk, talk, think, and innovate ways to help our partners, drive security both to protect themselves and to protect their clients. Now, sure, you can say, well, Jay, ConnectWise has been saying this since 2018 when Jason McGee said we were going to become a cybersecurity company, but it's fascinating that we've actually done just that. And, don't take my word on it. But the reality is that ConnectWise is probably not the only company out there you're listening to that's talking to you about security. Tanya, if you can advance, please. Or Lisa, whoever's driving the slides.
There we go.
So, you've been reading about it, you've been hearing about it, in the news, in the press here for years. Your clients are reading about it, your teams are reading about it, right, and hearing about it all the time. We know that the number of attacks are accelerating, which is going to continue to drive demand until we find a way to head those off. You're going to keep seeing a very steady growth when it comes to security. The regulatory bodies in all the markets that we serve have been telegraphing the need for change. And it's interesting because if you start really paying attention to what's happening, and it happened in Australia first with the notifiable data breach laws, then Europe and GDPR, California and Nevada, and I think it was Maine, came out with some privacy legislation, and now the 26 states are either in committee or are putting up for a vote additional privacy legislation. And of course, you can't have privacy without security. And so they're framing the conversation as to, if the intent is to protect the data that you control, the data that you're responsible for managing, including personally identifiable information, PII, that you're going to actually be forced to implement cybersecurity. And so whether you like it or not, we are all involved in the cybersecurity conversation now. And it truly is, all things that we are doing, here at ConnectWise. Now, I said, don't just take my word for it. Last year, a report came out from a group called Vance and Bourne. Vance and Bourne talked about some of the opportunities as they heard it from the SMBs. On the next slide, you'll see that they actually surveyed 700 small businesses from around the world, small businesses being 10 to 1,000 employees. I know some of you are like 1,000 employees, that's different, but no, they have the same challenges. We looked at the data at, 50 and under, 250 and under, 500, it was the same data. It didn't really make a difference. And the ones that you should know about when you're thinking about your security practice are 91% of those SMBs would consider changing or using a new IT service provider if they offered the right cybersecurity solution. Now, usually when I say the right cybersecurity, I put it in air quotes because I think we all probably realize that the end clients don't always know what the right security is. It's technology. It's like saying, how does my watch work, right? They just want to know what time it is. And in this case, they want to know that they're secure. And they're not confident that their current providers are doing a good enough job. Maybe they are, but I'm going to guess based on other stats from this report that they're not having that conversation to really tell that story for customers. So it's not just also that 91% will change providers, but on average, they'll pay 30% more. So they're willing to pay you more and will change providers. That's kind of a big deal because we now know that, cybersecurity is a top priority for the SMBs. Somewhere just under 40%, said it's the number one issue that they're facing. And of course, that was after we were already 3 or 4 months into the pandemic last year. So it's not like they were just saying this now. And between now and Secure Conference in June, we're rolling out the next study from Vance and Bourne. And the numbers are only improving in an MSP's favor that's willing to engage and drive cybersecurity. And lastly, I think to kind of set the stage for the rest of the conversation today, let's talk about what ConnectWise is actually doing for security and what our ecosystem looks like today. Somebody can click for me. I would do it, but my screen's not touchscreen, so. So there's a lot going on in our world that I don't think people realize. And I'm going to start on the right side since we are in the IT Nation world today. I spend most of my time there. Lisa, also obviously helps run these events. You guys are probably very familiar with her and thankful for all the work that she's done. So IT Nation Certify are the fundamental cybersecurity courses and now the advanced courses that we're doing to help your team level up with security. We're teaching you what security looks like. We're leveraging our backgrounds, mine especially as a previous owner of an MSP, and saying, here's what your teams need to know and understand around security. It's why it matters, how to assess risk, why you measure risk, how you talk about risk. It's implementation, secure onboarding, incident response, marketing tips, how to sell security, how to have that birds and bees conversation with your clients that so many of us are afraid to have because the client thinks that we already do it. IT Nation Secure is our annual conference just based on security. Now, we rolled this out last year and had thousands of attendees. This year we've moved it up a little bit. We're doing it in June, so next month, and it's going to be a hybrid event. So you can attend in person if you are ready, willing, and able to do so. And if you prefer to do this virtually, you'll have full access to all the live sessions being streamed directly from stages in Orlando. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. And of course, the IT Nation Share events. Now today, we kind of pivoted this from a typical share environment, and we're doing it in a you ask, we train kind of environment. So you'll see it's a little different than typical share, but we're here to answer your questions. Now, on the far left side are the products, and I want to kind of caution you with products in our world because Fortify, which is our brand for security, by itself is not a product. Fortify has a bunch of different solutions under it that we call Fortify Assessment, Fortify Endpoint, Fortify Network. Those are the individual products under that Fortify brand. And of course, recently, if you didn't hear the news, we acquired both Stratison and Perch, and very, very excited to see how we're combining the intelligence that both of those companies bring to the conversation and the platform that Perch is enabling our partners with when it comes to SIEM. And of course, all those solutions have an option to be backed by our Worldwide Security Operations Center. Now, ConnectWise doesn't solve every problem out there. We don't have a product for everything out there. So we've got the ConnectWise Marketplace that our partners lean on to help close the gap when they need some additional technology that we don't offer directly. And lastly, what we'll touch on briefly is the ConnectWise Partner Program that we've just announced. And the goal here is to do security with our partner community. We know that there's a lot of challenges you're facing when it comes to rolling out, and I think your questions today that we're answering will kind of dictate why we built this partner program. But again, we'll cover that more here in a few minutes. So with that, let's talk about some of the products and answer some of the questions that came in. Henry, are you up first?
Absolutely. So when we were looking at the questions that our partners had submitted to us today, right, what we noticed is a theme that a lot of our partners really wanted to, first of all, hear about the different layers of security. And so with that being said, what I wanted to do is pass the mic over to Todd first so that he can talk about the different layers and how our partners can protect their end customers. Now, Todd, I'm going to give you permissions here so you can drive the PowerPoint at your pace here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate it. So, yeah, I had a little bit of internet thing there. I wasn't sure if that was me or if it was everybody. So I'm glad that you can all hear me and see me, right? Looks like I'm back.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. So one of the things that I really liked about this IT Nation Share event was the fact that you guys, the partners, were the ones that were generating like what the content was going to be for this, right? Rather than us, through thought leadership saying, hey, this is what we think our partner should hear. Like it was literally you guys asking the questions and us be able to present with that. Now, with that said, as you guys were registering, we saw a lot of questions that were really product specific, with assessment and endpoint and the Perch network threat detection, which Dylan and Houston and Henry will talk about here in a minute. But one of the things we also saw was questions like, what is Fortify? What's your Fortify product do? Tell me about ConnectWise security. I mean, there was just kind of like a broad overview of things there that showed, well, it doesn't look like everybody gets an understanding of what all the different layers of security are with ConnectWise and our Fortify suite. So I thought it would be helpful to just kind of give a quick overview of really what the product suite is all about, and then focus at a high level what the different solutions are in their use cases. And then I'll hand it over to Houston and Dylan and Henry to talk about 3 of those different solutions. So to kind of add on to what Jay was mentioning earlier, understanding that there is a need right now, and it's really the buzz. It's not what's next, it's what's now. I had a call earlier this morning with one of our partners that was at the Robin Robbins event, and if you're not familiar with Robbins and how to sell and grow your business and that sort of thing, they told me that all of the side discussions everywhere, everybody was not really talking about the Robin Robbins content. They were talking about security. Like all the MSPs that were there, like security was the buzz of what everybody is, the what's now. So I think it kind of goes right along with what Jay was referencing as well. So one of the things that we know is it's not advancing. So is that me driving this or Tanya, you doing that?
Yep, it's you.
Okay, just a little bit of a delay then. I'll
Mhm.
build this whole slide out. So one of the things that we know with our partners is there's certain challenges that you can have, not only with your clients as presenting cybersecurity to your clients and educating them, but internally the challenges that you might have within your own MSP business. For one is education, like knowing what good security looks like. What should your different packages be? What bundles? What sort of margin should you have? What sort of returns can you expect by putting certain things together? Just knowing where to get started with that can be a challenge, and we talked a little bit about our partner program that helps with that too, but that's one of the areas that we really help out with, understanding the different pieces of cybersecurity and security controls, and then the go-to-market strategy and that sort of thing. The other side outside of product and strategy like that is really the tools themselves. Knowing what products to use and what services you should be using with those particular tools. So a lot of MSPs don't have the time, they don't have the resources to really research and check out different security tools that are across multiple layers of security. Like, what are you doing for like perimeter security? What are you doing for firewall? What are you doing for security awareness training? Advanced endpoint protection, a SIEM. Do you have a SOC? Do you just have technicians that used to run cabling and reimage machines, and now they're your internal SOC team? What's their cybersecurity expertise? So a lot of times with the traditional MSPs that we have, they don't know what tools to use, they don't know what security layers to use, and they don't have the resources to support it as well, right? So really, that's what we've tried to do at ConnectWise is come up with everything, not just saying, hey, let's buy some licenses to products, but saying, okay, let's educate the MSPs on the ins and outs of cybersecurity. In the certified program, if you haven't done that, we literally have thousands. Last count I thought it was like 7,000 or 8,000 different partners. Jay might have the updated count on that, but we've had thousands of partners that have gone through the certified program to get educated about the cybersecurity industry and get that certification through us. And it's not only educating you guys, but it's teaching you how to educate your clients as well. So it makes your sales motion with them that much easier. And so the education is a key piece of that. What about the protections themselves? Are you using a traditional AV or like a basic AV? Are you using a next gen antivirus? Or use an EDR solution? Well, what's an EDR solution? You'd be surprised how many partners I talk to that don't even know what the acronym EDR is. And I'm sorry if anybody on this call doesn't know either, but that's one of the things you'll learn today. We'll train you on that. Or a SIEM. What is a SIEM solution? So it's just a matter of not even knowing what protections there are. And then what do you do when there is some sort of threat? How are those things detected? Is there tools that are doing automated detection? Is there a security operations center team that's involved in the detection? Who's analyzing when there's a threat? What's the remediation process look like? What's the incident response process look like? So how do you recover when there's an attack? So one of the things that we've done is really put together everything from an education, the tools, the SOC, the whole process there to make your lives easier, make you able to sleep better at night, and then also make your clients, able to sleep better at night as well. So I wanted to show you this slide. There's a lot going on here. This is kind of similar to the slide that Jay showed earlier, but real quick, there's the Secure conference coming up. Go to that, sign up for that, do that. There's going to be a wealth of knowledge, the Certify program for education, the playbook. But what I want to talk about today is really this piece of it. I pulled that one out. Here, let me go back. I want to cover the one that talks about the Fortify that you see here at the top of the screen. This is really an overview of what the Fortify suite is all about. So some of you ask questions like, what does your Fortify product do? Fortify isn't a product. There's multiple pieces of Fortify, or how does Fortify integrate with some of your other tools and so forth? So I want to start from just left to right here. I'm going to start with Fortify assessment. We had, in the early days of offering security, wasn't called Fortify, it was called Detect and Respond. And we had an endpoint solution and a network solution and a SOC, right? And partners that saw the, where the industry was going, they saw the types of attacks that were happening. They got it. They understood a need for more advanced endpoint protection. They saw the need for having a SIEM solution and then having an expert team of security engineers watching out for them and doing all that work. What they had trouble doing was going to their existing clients and going to their existing prospects that they were working on, and kind of getting that need for advanced security solutions over to the prospects and their existing clients. And feedback that partners would get a lot of times was, well, I thought you were already doing the security stuff for us. And a lot of times partners, they offered an antivirus and a firewall, maybe DNS protection, but the foundational, or just what we consider basic fundamental things now, that's what a lot of MSPs, just as recent as a couple years ago, that's what they thought cybersecurity was all about. And they weren't educated to know the more advanced things and types of attacks that are happening nowadays. So what we did is we built a product called Fortify Assessment that is a pre-sales tool that allows you to go out to your existing clients or go out to prospects and give them a quick vulnerability scan or a dark web scan and just get the conversation started with that client. So one of the things that you can easily do with Fortify Assessment is any sales rep in your organization, any technician in your organization can literally go into our management portal, go to run a dark web scan, type in that prospect that you're going to see, type in their email domain, hit generate report, give it a couple seconds, and boom, you're looking at a list of emails and passwords that have been compromised and are currently for sale on the dark web. Right now, what do you do with that? You go to your prospect that you're meeting or your existing client, and you say, hey, let's talk about things we always talk about in our monthly meetings or our quarterly business reviews. But I also wanted to bring up some things here that we discovered on the dark web in terms of cybersecurity. I've been meaning to talk to you more about advanced security solutions because of the types of threats we're seeing now. Here, I pulled this dark web report for you. Let's take a look at it and I'll show you what it means. And it's now you educating that client, what is the dark web? Well, we got the surface web, we got the deep web, we got the dark web. And Mr. Business Owner, here's what happens on the dark web. When credentials get stolen, this is where they get sold. If you want to buy malware, you go on the dark web. If you want to buy rootkits, if you want to buy hack tools, you can do all this stuff on the dark web, and that's what the cyber criminals do. But there's a lot of other nasty stuff too that happens on the dark web. And when the light bulb kind of clicks for them that says, wait a minute, these are my emails on them. I own the business and my email's in here, and that's a password I'm currently using or a password I've used recently. And you're telling me that's out there on this dark web you're talking about. What would a criminal do with that? Well, they could use that information to try to hack into your corporate network. They could try to take over social media accounts. They could do social engineering. They could steal identity. They're going to use that password and email combination to try to log into Bank of America and Wells Fargo and PNC Bank and Fidelity and all kinds of banking and investment applications. And what you're doing is you're just kind of turning the light bulb on in that business owner's mind that they're not as safe and secure as they thought they were. Right. And it kind of gives them the quest or the thirst to want to learn more. And that dark web report is one thing. You could upsell them on ongoing dark web monitoring and let them know that, hey, we can monitor the dark web, and if any new credentials appear there for your organization, we'll be notified of that and we can take the corrective action. The other piece with Fortify Assessment is the ability to download a scanning tool from our management portal, and then run a scan, like a vulnerability scan, that you would put in an IP range and do some configurations in there with the registry and Nmap. But you're essentially allowing this scanning tool to scan a particular subnet on a prospect or a client and say, what endpoint vulnerabilities do we have? Are there machines missing patches? Are there machines that have CVEs, critical vulnerabilities that are exposed? There's a whole number of things, and actually Henry's going to get more detailed into Fortify assessment here later in this session. But really, you're using that assessment report to point out gaps and vulnerabilities that the business will have, that then you can come in as the trusted advisor and make recommendations and offer your services, whether they're managed services, help them with their policies, help them with their procedures. Maybe it's endpoint things you need to do. Maybe you need to incorporate some solutions. Maybe you need to incorporate a security operations center team. But essentially what you're doing is you're showing them the need for the different offerings that you have. All right, so that's Fortify assessment. Now, when it comes to the advanced security piece here, this is where the Security Operations Center team comes into play. So there's Fortify Endpoint, Fortify SaaS, and then the Fortify Perch Network Threat Detection. I know a lot of you, when you registered, were asking about Fortify, and then a follow-up question referred something that led us to believe they mean Fortify Endpoint. So I just want to be clear. Fortify Endpoint is, we use a combination of our Security Operations Center team and an EDR solution. And we actually use a company, it's an enterprise grade company by the name of SentinelOne that has, I mean, if you're just following anything out there on the internet or social media, SentinelOne is winning a lot of awards. It's really making a name for itself as one of the top EDRs in the space. And we've been using SentinelOne for years. Our whole company, like my laptop on my own, we use SentinelOne. That is our endpoint protection product. And what we're doing with Endpoint, which Houston is going to get into more detail about the ins and outs of it, is we're using a tool that's not just a basic antivirus. It's not even a next-gen antivirus. It's a full-blown EDR solution, which I'll leave some of that to Houston so he can bring you up to speed on that. Fortify SaaS is really where we're trying to combat or solve a problem with partners that are having issues with business email compromise. There is so much activity going around Microsoft 365 accounts, people trying to, get access to a 365 credential and, set up forwarding rules or redirection rules, trying to log in from crazy times and crazy places. And if you're not monitoring what's going on with that 365 activity, sometimes it might be too late. So what we do with Fortify SaaS is we monitor the 365 activity around the email and the OneDrive and the SharePoint, and our SOC team takes those alerts, does the analysis, and then we also do the mitigation and remediation as well, right? And then same thing with the Perch Network Threat Detection that Dylan's going to talk about in detail. That is our full-blown SIEM solution. So we're not just looking at 365 logs, we're looking at logs from the other devices, whether it's firewalls, servers, workstations, other integrations with SaaS products, and so on, and then generating alerts of suspicious activity there as well. So keep in mind, Fortify Endpoint, SaaS, and then the Network Threat Detection, those all have the Security Operations Center team. That is literally the extension of your team. They're the eyes and ears. Some of our partners have called them the first responders, which they kind of like that. And that's the thing, they're around 24/7. So if there's an alarm goes off, like there's a fire alarm somewhere, these guys are the ones that hear the alarm. They're the ones that respond to it. They're the ones that put out the initial fire. They're the ones that analyze the extent of the damage. They're the ones that research how the fire started in the first place. And they're the ones that help rebuild whatever the damage was. So it's invaluable having a security operations center team that's an extension of your team. Fortify Protection, I'll talk on that real quick. It's a risk scoring tool that if you're using the legacy Command RMM solution, you can have what's called a security profile. And what we're doing is we're checking 32 different categories, 31 different categories on machines, whether it's an endpoint or a user setting. and we're constantly checking to see if those configurations are set up properly, and if they are or not. If there's a ratio that calculates a risk score, which allows you to get alerted when there's a risk score that exceeds a threshold number, and you guys can take action to, take whatever the corrective action is on that machine to get it back in line. And identify, we didn't really get very many questions on identify, but real quick, identify is another type of assessment, but it has nothing to do with running like a technical vulnerability scan. It's literally going through a series of questions that are all based on the NIST framework, and it talks about, policies, security policies that you have in place, security procedures you have in place, incident response plans you have in place, data security and things like that. But it's literally a questionnaire you go through that then, based on how the owner of that business answers those questions, will determine what your action plan is, knocking out the critical things that are probably going to happen and are going to be bad when they do, and just kind of work with them over time to reduce their overall risk. So that's a real quick high level of the Fortify stack. Real quick before I hand it over, I just wanted to go to the Security Operations Center team. The thing is, you can incorporate tools, you can buy products and put them in place. The problem with just looking at it from the technical side or the product side is a lot of times the information that's generated gets ignored. And, according to a study Cisco did, 43% of security alerts go uninvestigated just because of the amount of information that's there. So what happens a lot of times is that internal IT team that you got products in place, but you're not really doing anything with them. You're just ignoring it because there's so much noise. And that's, again, where our SOC team comes in, because we look at all of the alerts that come in. We're not going to bug you with all the false positives, but we want you to know the critical things that are happening. So our SOC team, it's growing. The last I checked, it was around 130 headcount in our SOC. We're a global security operations center team. So, again, and plus we're 24/7, but really what we're doing is show you on this next slide here is we have, if it's building out for me, here we go. I mentioned the SOC is there for the endpoint network and the SaaS products. At a little bit of late, here we go. But key functions of the SOC, that bottom right corner, really just going to help you optimize your operations. So like if you were to build your own security operations center team, good luck finding people. There's a skills gap. There's a shortage. Good luck retaining people. Good luck having money to pay people, because they are, highly skilled and highly in demand, which means, they can demand some nice income there. So it's going to be a big thing to build your own security operations center team. But by using the ConnectWise SOC with these Fortify solutions, you get them automatically, and it's much easier to scale and grow. But again, they're your eyes and ears. They're the ones that are the first responders, investigating the threat, analyzing what just happened, doing the mitigation to make sure that the threat is killed, make sure it's quarantined, make sure that if there's lateral movement or whatever, making sure that that threat is no longer a live threat. And then we go into, how did that happen? What do we need to do to clean this up? What was the extent of the damage? What are the file changes that occurred? What are the system changes that occurred? Is there configurations that need to be done differently on a firewall or on a server? And we'll give you those recommendations and even do that work with you. So big piece of the SOC. I had mentioned the different components of the SOC, or the SOC teams. So there's the analysis team, the research team, and then this is taking its time. I don't know if it's my internet connection, but it's taking a time to load on me here. Yeah, there we go. So the incident response team, the analysis team, and the research team. So, kind of, straightforward what each of those do, but we're constantly looking to see what's going on out there in the cyber industry. I think Houston's going to give an example of a recent attack with Hafnium. One of the things that we were able to do is, when some partners were hit with that Hafnium attack a few months ago, the way that we manage our SOC is we were able to then proactively go and look at other partners of ours that maybe hadn't been tied up in that attack, but could be open to it or susceptible to it. And we were able to proactively go to them and say, listen, here's what's going on around right now. You could be a target based on some things we know about you. Here's what we can do to close those doors, or close those gaps. So that all comes from our research team and our analysis team. So finally, typical timeline, a threat is detected by whatever the tool is, whether it's Fortify Endpoint, whether it's the Perch network threat detection, there's an alert, it's initiated, our SOC team's getting the alert, doing the investigation, doing the analysis. We take ownership of it. Sometimes it's nothing to see, and we're not going to bug you in the middle of the day or the middle of the night. So we're going to take all that noise out of it. So you can just kind of know that the alerts that are happening aren't getting ignored. Remember I said 43% of alerts just don't even get looked at. So, you can kind of rest easy that we're looking at everything, and we're going to avoid the noise with you, but we're just going to involve you on the things that are more critical, that need your attention, and even work with you to talk to your client about the situation of what just happened, including what just happened plus what are the next steps moving forward. So with that, that's my last slide. Tony, are we taking breaks in between for questions, or was there questions in the chat? I didn't have that open.
Yeah, so I don't see any questions coming in. Once again, I want to urge everyone that does have any questions, please keep them coming in the chat, right? So, any questions that there are coming up or anything like that, please keep them coming in the chat. Now, we will take a little bit of a shift than planned in the way that we're going to do today's session. I know that the next part we were supposed to talk about the assessment tools, right? But I feel like, between Jay and Todd, we have done such a wonderful job in talking about what assessment actually is, right? And how to utilize it within your environment as an MSP with your end users, that I would like to just go forward a little bit and really focus the questions that we've had from our attendees today around Perch, right? And give me 1 second. It looks like I'm getting a pop-up here that my computer would like to reboot, these live sessions. This is exactly what happens in these live.
Hey, I got booted off the internet when Jay was talking.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Tanya?
I think your computer officially rebooted.
I think she hit the wrong button.
I think she did. Well, my internet went out right in the middle of Jay talking, and I'm like, rejoin. And when it rejoined and I heard people talking again, it was Tanya introducing me. It's like, okay, well, perfect timing on that one. And
Well,
hey, one thing
timing.
Yeah.
Perfect
hey, real quick.
timing in the middle of a webinar, right? My laptop here reboots. So I want to apologize to everyone, but I guess this is what happens, when you're doing live events. Todd, are you able to get the PowerPoint back up for us? Because I literally had to hop on my phone to be able to join this.
Yeah, let me grab that. And by the way, there was one thing I forgot to mention, that there was a question up front was about our SOC. Someone had asked if we outsource our SOC. No, the Security Operations Center team, these are ConnectWise recruited, vetted, hired. They are ConnectWise employees. We are not outsourcing our Security Operations Center team at all. So let's see, where's that PowerPoint at?
I could share mine out, Todd. I have mine
Perfect.
up.
Do you have it? Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Let me do that. Find the right window.
Tanya, I was saying my internet went out when Jay was speaking, and I kept trying to rejoin. And when it finally came back on, I heard you talking and you were introducing me. So I guess the internet is just not our friend today, man.
Well, come on. Technology typically cooperates, but there are those certain events where it just doesn't cooperate. Like with me, Windows updates are happening right now, unfortunately, on my machine. So it might be a while. So I'm grabbing my other machine that I have.
Yeah.
Or main stage at IT Nation.
All right, let me try to get it up. Every time I try to pull it up, it tries to exit the PowerPoint out of full screen mode. Yeah. Keeps exiting it. Todd, do you want to try to get that up? It keeps exiting the full screen on mine. Sorry, guys. This wouldn't be a live webinar if these issues were not happening. This is how you know this is not rehearsed. This is real, raw, as it comes.
Exactly. And I think that's the beauty of things, right? We all can relate to those scenarios where, you know, we plan, we have a whole game plan around it, and then something happens and you have to shift a little bit, right?
All right.
All right. You guys got me? Let me.
Oh, it was up and now it's, there we go. It's coming up now.
All right. Just where we're at.
You can go to the one that says SIEM plus Sentinel-1. There we go. Perfect. All right. So we will kick it off, and sorry about that guys, that temporary delay. But something, you know, like I said at the beginning, my name is Dylan Jensen. If you guys jumped in after the introductions, today we're good. You know, I'm going to be going over some of the questions that were feeded in from the community, from you guys around, you know, specifically Perch. And in this scenario, it was actually Perch and Sentinel-1. You know, what do I get when I'm implementing Perch and I have Sentinel-1 as well? What do I get out of that? Now, going to the next slide, can I request control from you, Todd?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Let me try. Let's see if it tries to play pretty on us. All right, waiting for approval. But you can click through on there, Todd, if you'd like. All right, so the first way that, you know, the way that we actually integrate with Sentinel-1 on the Perch side is we have the back end of Perch, and it's constantly making API requests out to Sentinel-1. And if you click through there a little bit more, then what we get out of that is actually telemetry data pulled in from Sentinel-1. Now, this could be information like, you know, threats occurring. This could be machine was quarantined. And if you go to the next slide, I actually have that broken down into detail, and you can just fill out that page there. You can see we have threat mitigation and response, new malicious threats, agent subscribed, new note added, full disk scanned. Now, the big thing with a SIEM and the solution of Perch itself is we're integrating with Sentinel-1 and we're bringing all this information in, but we're probably integrating with like O365, or we're going to be integrating with like your Active Directory servers, your firewall, your routers, your switches. So we're bringing this all into an aggregated source. So all of this security telemetry information is going to be presented in one single view, one single source. And if you go to the next slide there, Todd. Now, what you can also get with this is also reporting. So you can see we have a nice little report right here where it gives us metrics. It gives us new threats occurring. And if you saw on that previous page, it actually showed like SOC new note added. If you're leveraging our Fortify endpoint technology with what we call Fortified Network or Perch, you'd be able to see any notes that were added from the SOC when they're doing mitigation responses, when they're doing any activity within the Sentinel-1 console and they're adding that SOC note to that, you'd be able to see that within the Perch platform. Now, if you add that, and you can see this is a report that I've built out, takes 15 minutes to build out a report like this within the Perch platform itself. We have this pre-built one. You can add different elements to it, like the SOC notes. So when you're doing that, all of that information is going to automatically get fed into this report. And then if you're presenting this report to, let's say, your customer on a per customer basis, you would be able to see the SOC notes added. And that's something that you're providing value immediately. And it's automatically occurring, right? So value is really good, but easy value is even better, right? Because there's not a lot of work that has to be put into that. Now, talking about some scenarios where you'd want to implement Perch with Sentinel-1. So for example, I'm going to speak on my past. I haven't always been on the vendor space. I came from the operations side, kind of like Jay. He used to own an MSP. I did cybersecurity for the government, and we had a SIEM and we had an EDR in place. And some of the times people would be like, all right, we have our EDR on our PCs. That's great, but we have contractors coming in and out of the building, right? We're government. We hire contractors. We outsource a lot. They're coming in. They're plugging into our production networks, and let's say they have malware, for instance. Well, our EDR in that instance is not going to be in the equation just because it's not installed on the machine itself. Now, how do we detect that there's malware on our network, that there's a malicious threat? Well, that's going to be where the SIEM comes into place. And with the Perch SIEM itself, it actually has the ability to do network threat detection, right? And that's done, and you guys will see it here in a little bit with our Perch sensor itself. Now, another scenario that comes very applicable to this equation is going to be, all right, let's say, you're leveraging our Fortify network. You have our SOC. They're looking at the Perch console. They're looking at the Fortify endpoint console, and what they see is, all right, we see like a piece of malware communicating to like a command and control machine, for example. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to go look at the Fortify endpoint console. They're going to go look at Perch and see if those are installed, see if those are at play here. If they're not, they're going to assume, okay, this looks like a rogue machine. That's what we would call it, as a rogue machine. And it looks like it has malware. Now, if you have a rogue machine that has malware on the network, you're automatically reducing the security posture of that entire network, right? And you want to be able to detect that. You want to be able to tackle that as quick as possible. And that's what you would get with partnering the SIEM with the SentinelOne console itself. All right, Todd, you want to next slide it? All right. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is, when is SIEM needed? This was a really good question. Actually, I love this question because a lot of people don't know when a SIEM is needed. Now, if you next slide there, Todd, for me, and you can fill this one out. Actually, don't fill it out because there's some animation on there. Deep visibility. So one of the reasons you'd want to get a SIEM is for that deep visibility component. I always frame up, home security as cybersecurity. And I like to use that analogy where you have your perimeter security, like your front, your door locks. Those are going to be symbolic to like your firewalls. You have your endpoint protections in place. Those are going to be symbolic to maybe if you have like an attack dog or a dog in your house. And then, if you walk away from your house at any period during the day, you need to get visibility of what's going on within the realm of your home when you're not there, right? You want to get that deep visibility to exactly what's going on. And Perch is going to be symbolic to like your home security system of like cameras, door sensors, things like that. And then we partner that with the SOC, where they're on the back end looking at this 24/7 and seeing exactly what's going on. And with this deep visibility, I brought up this "How Does Perch Work" page just because it shows a lot of the 30,000 foot view elements of what Perch is able to pull in. So you can see workstation servers there at the top right of this picture. You can see network devices, cloud integrations. We have over 40 cloud integrations, and this is an ever-growing number. It's never going to stop, right? We're constantly doing development. We're reaching out to our community. This is community fed. So, for example, some of the integrations we have are SentinelOne, like we went over earlier, O365, G Suite. We even have integrations into like Salesforce and ticketing systems now. So, really great visibility. You get that deep visibility. Now, Todd, you want to give me another one? Hit it again for me. There we go. Compliance. Compliance is going to be another big reason if you need a SIEM. Now, a lot of people, they get a SIEM because compliance says to get a SIEM. The big thing that they miss there is there's a reason compliance is saying get a SIEM, and it's the added security that you're getting. It's that the ability to go back in time. It's the ability to get forensics built out on a machine, things like that. They're going to be applicable. And this slide right here, in that picture, you can see this is actually pulling from CMMC. And if you guys are dealing heavily with CMMC, especially level 3 is where this is applicable. You can see all the areas just by implementing Perch where you're covering. So you can see access control, incident response, situation awareness, audit and accountability, system information and integrity, system communication protections. All of those areas are covered just by having one single solution in there. Now, there's no turnkey solution, right? There's no easy button to compliance. Compliance is going to be driven by policy and technology working hand in hand together. But one of the big reasons to get a SIEM is definitely for that compliance you need. Now, that covers CMMC. Now, HIPAA, FFIEC for our financial folks, those are going to be all applicable, and we've kind of molded Perch to fit in a lot of the scenarios. So, for example, FFIEC, they make a requirement that you need to ingest threat intel. And when you're ingesting threat intel, then you're checking that box within FFIEC. Well, guess what? Perch natively integrates with threat intel vendors like Department of Homeland Security Emerging Threats, FSISAC, which is a financial services specific threat intel, it's done really easy just by providing credentials in the application to get that threat intel, and then it's automatically utilized within the Perch solution itself. Now, if you want to hit that again for me, Todd. Employee augmentation. So this kind of goes away from what we would call a traditional SIEM, because remember, traditional SIEM is just going to be the technology. Now, when is, and I could change this to, when is Perch needed? Well, if you need everything above, and then you also need that employee augmentation. And what you get with that employee augmentation is actually going to be the SOC, right? And Todd did a good job at talking about the SOC earlier, but I've always said people are expensive, services are cheap, right? And you can get Perch for far cheaper than you can staff a 24/7 SOC globally, right? Now, if you're a one-man shop, two-man shop, I've always seen that out there in the realm where, we're a one-man, two-man shop in South Dakota. We don't have time to do cybersecurity 24/7. Perfect, right? Get Perch in there. We have our SOC. They act as that tier 1, tier 2, and they'll filter out and funnel a lot of that noise and only provide the actionable threats. Well, actionable threats don't occur very often. When they do occur, right, that's where you'd want to jump on that and capitalize that. And that's where the SOC comes into play from that. All right, you want to hit that again for me, Todd? And we talked about a community-driven threat intel, right, where we're getting threat intel from Department of Homeland Security emerging threats. We're also creating our own threat intel here at Perch, and this is done with we call it our Perch Labs team, right, where they're dealing with looking at specific threats going on within the environments of all of the Perch customers, building threat intel, and then propagating that back across all of the Perch customers. So, for example, you guys saw, this is recent, but not as recent as before, but like the SolarWinds issue, or, you saw like the Exchange issues. Well, what we did is we propagated all of the threat intel. We saw this in our customers' environments, for example, SolarWinds, and how it was communicating, how we were detecting this in the Perch platform. And then we propagated that automatically, so all of the Perch customers could be able to detect that day one that we put the threat intel in. So you'd be able to get that community-driven threat intel just by being a Perch customer. And there's nothing you have to do. It's automatically occurring within the environment. All right, I think that's, Todd, do I got another? Yep, that was my last slide, but I appreciate everybody for asking those great questions, and hopefully we got some of the answers. Now, a call to action I would say would be, if you want to get more information from, Perch or anything around that, just reach out to us and we'll be able to give you guys like a formalized demo where we can jump on there and kind of discuss everything that we talked about.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you so much. And it looks like I'm back up, right? It took a little bit for my device to get back up and running, but I'm back and in motion. All right. So part of the questions that we saw from our audience today is also a little bit of confusion around the evolution of Endpoint. Houston, can you spend some time with us and talk about the different detection engines that we use with Endpoint? And also, while we're talking about the different engines, can you give us a preview of Deep Visibility? I find that so exciting, especially since it's something new to ConnectWise now.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I wanted to do, actually, one of our participants here did actually submit a question, and if they're comfortable interacting, feel free to. But really, the question was the network quarantine control from an MSP point of view. And that's something that is inherently available within SentinelOne, regardless of where you get it. Now it's valuable for obviously, as Dylan was just talking about, with staff augmentation, right? People are expensive, services are not, right? Bringing in Fortify Endpoint, I do have the ability as a SOC analyst to help isolate those machines. So in the incident of a laterally moving threat, right, where it's crawling machine to machine, we want to stop that. We want to isolate that. We want to sandbox that machine, right? So in a scenario, and I see Michael is typing, so I'm glad he's about to chime in here. But in a perfect world, right? Well, imperfect, right, where there are threats still, but in a perfect world where our SOC analysts are able to get an MSP on the phone when there is an active security incident, right, one of the first things that we're going to try and do is isolate that machine, and that network quarantine control feature inherent inside of SentinelOne enables the MSP as well as the SOC analyst with the ability of essentially eliminating the any kind of local communication as well as outside communication from that endpoint. But the device itself, the agent that's on that device, has been designed and engineered in a way that enables SOC analysts and MSPs the ability to actually perform remediation functions. Okay, now that can be built into the actual policy to auto disconnect, and you may have a choice to do that. And so Michael did chime in with that question. We use ConnectWise control. So when an endpoint is in network quarantine, how do we get remote access to access the machine? And the simple answer is you can't. All right. There's no special way of setting up a ConnectWise control or Screen Connect for those that might be more familiar with that term. There's no way to get a control connection made while that machine is under network quarantine. Now, this is good though, because as an analyst, as an MSP, I don't want that threat spreading to other machines, causing more problems. I want to isolate it. But through that technology, as an analyst and as an MSP, I'm still going to be able to use remediate and rollback capabilities, which we'll discuss here in a few slides. But I'll be able to use those kind of one-click remediation steps to actually undo that threat. When that's completed, that SOC analyst is going to be able to reconnect that machine back to the network and give them that ability to continue with any kind of control session or any other kind of additional incident response plans that they may have come up with between the SOC analyst team as well as the MSP. So again, just to reiterate, when you're using control and a machine is in network quarantine, right? No functionality there, no way to still do that remote connection, but you still have a lot of functionality available to you through the endpoint agent, that being Sentinel-1. Another question came up is really, actually, if you don't mind, yeah, keep it on that slide for just a second. Any tips, tricks, or ways to, I'm at the first slide, but it's okay. Any tips, tricks, or ways to get it, it's all good. Any tips, tricks, or ways to get it to interact correctly with Automate? Now, I'm not sure if this individual is on the call, but for those that are using ConnectWise Automate, or again, Lab Tech for any kind of old timers there, ConnectWise Automate actually does have a pre-created script that you can use to deploy out and look for machines that don't have it deployed, and upgrade the agent as well. That can be found through the Solution Center, and that Solution Center, just search for Fortify. It should come up, and from there, simply deploy it out, and you'll be able to leverage that integration. So again, it's a great way to handle the deployment when you're deploying to multiple machines at once there. And again, like I said, my name is Houston Parks, sales engineer here with ConnectWise. Been with the company for a little while. So if any kind of questions about legacy systems, how they work with these Fortify tools, more than happy to help answer that. Now, I am going to take the next few minutes and talk a little bit about EDR, or Endpoint Detection and Response. I'm also going to take a little bit of time and talk about the genesis of EDR and really why that's important and how you can leverage these advanced tools to really help kind of keep your guard up, right? How to keep those defenses up against malicious actors and organizations there. As Dylan had just created the verb, next slide it for me. So evolution is unavoidable here. The fact of the matter is, threats are evolving, and it's not just the threat itself, but the target, right? As IT solution providers, you are all in the crosshairs of malicious actors, right? These malicious actors, whether they are a single entity or a group, right? They are targeting MSPs in search of those keys to the kingdom, right? And as I kind of just made a reference, right? We've all heard these stereotypes about that guy living in his mom's basement, but this isn't the case anymore, right? These are organized businesses, organized entities that are staffed 24/7, looking for financial opportunities, looking for financial gain through ransomware and other methods of attack. So the question really becomes, right? These threats are evolving. What are you guys doing to evolve and keep up? Are you enhancing your knowledge? Are you enhancing your awareness and your tools? Next slide. So for a lot of folks out there, right, they may already have an endpoint protection tool, and for a long time they thought, well, that's all I've ever really needed, right? We're providing AV, but really when you think about it, right, that's a thing of the past. As I said, tools need to evolve. There's a lot more behavioral-based attacks going on out there, file list-based attacks, browser-based attacks, right? That are getting around traditional antivirus. Now, And I'm sure a lot of folks here have already experienced that and are seeing that. But again, don't want to make any assumptions, as Todd had mentioned, because I still meet people that think that AV is the end all be all. AV and firewall, not the case anymore. But want to add that AV really wasn't something that was created just for fun, right? It was created in response to something. It was designed and it was engineered as a response to increased amounts of threats, damage occurring to businesses. So when organizations started implementing AV tools, that helped slow down the attacks, right? But when it did, you don't think that those hacking groups, those malicious actors, kind of hung up their cleats or said, okay, well, I better shine up my resume and go look for a new job, right, or a new career. No, they evolved, right? They evolved to build out new attacks that got around those traditional detection methods and prevention methods, right? They evolved their tool stack to gain access to your systems and to steal the data that's important to them, or to set up attacks for a later time. So again, whether those are fileless-based attacks, browser-based attacks, what we all need to truly have in place is what's called EDR, endpoint detection and response. Go ahead, next slide for me. So this is really the new frontier for endpoint protection, right? And I want to take a moment on these next two slides and discuss detection methodologies and really how we respond to these detections. And when we talk about something like Protect or static AI there on the left-hand side, this is what we use to kind of help prevent pre-execution attacks. And AV traditionally does this and does it well, right? Now, with the EDR technology that we include as part of Fortify Endpoint, remember I'm sorry, Jay was talking about, oh, I'm sorry, just lost my train of thought all of a sudden. Anyway, doesn't matter. Oh yeah, the new now, right? This is something that is currently available, right? Meaning I want to look for those attacks that are looking at signature-based attacks where we're comparing to hashes or looking at definitions, right? I want to look for those types of attacks and protect our users from them. Now, if there was an attack that did execute, right? Maybe it did make some sort of system change or a file change. Maybe it did ingest some information and try and create a kind of a remote connection to a outside command and control server, right? We're going to have automated response remediation to attempt to stop those threats. So again, that's not only coming from the EDR technology, but it's also coming from our SOC team as well. And that's really why a solution like Fortify Endpoint is really powerful, but at its core, why EDR is such a capable tool and is evolving to meet the threats that have evolved as well. Next slide. So with endpoint detect and response, specifically through Fortify Endpoint and SentinelOne, there are a number of different detection engines that are active at the same time, right? You know, as I said before, there are static-based attacks, there are fileless-based attacks in memory, right? A wide variety. So we can't rely on just one single policy to rule them all. Hope someone got the Lord of the Rings reference there, right? What we're trying to do here is we are trying to have these policy engines running not only just from the local agent, but from the cloud as well. So that way we can cover some of those static detection policies like we described in that previous slide, but also AI engines, right? AI engines that we're using to incorporate behavioral AI policies. We're using behavioral analysis and machine learning to really better understand when programs or files or even services are kind of acting outside of their intended scope. Right. Another way to put that, and this is kind of a made up number, but you know, Microsoft Word say does 27 things. If it starts doing this 28th or 29th thing, no matter where it happens in the anatomy of an attack, right? We're going to stop that and we're going to do our best to kill and quarantine and isolate that. Now, I don't know about the folks on the call here. I don't use very many Word documents that have underlying scripts configured to kind of run and set up those outside network connections. So those are things that we're going to be looking for. We're looking at other attack vectors as well, things like lateral movement, attacks memory, scripts, right? But it's all backed by a response team that's certified with analysts that are experienced not only in cybersecurity, but expert at this tool. So as those detections are occurring, it's not on the MSP to take that information in and understand it, right? And sometimes that's a problem that a lot of MSPs face, is that they think that they have to get these tools but they have to also execute with those tools. They have to understand them in and out. And for many MSPs, they don't have that time. They don't have that bandwidth. They don't have that luxury. Another way to put it, right? You look at something like a hammer, right? On the ground is just a piece of wood and a piece of iron tied together. But it becomes a tool when you begin to hammer those nails into the wall. With EDR, right? It's a fantastic solution. But leveraging a security operations team like Fortify behind the scenes is just going to unlock so much more potential and power to help respond and stop those attacks. All right. The one-click remediation, right? And you can keep it on this slide, but that one-click remediation, right? That's certainly very powerful. That's something that we are going to do in coordination with the MSP. It's not something that we're going to be doing on our own. So you will have that ability to actually talk to an incident or a security analyst on the phone in the event of an unfortunate security attack there. So again, these are tools that are built into the SentinelOne agent that make it really easy to help respond to and recover from these attacks. All right, next slide. So I want to wrap up though with some technology that we've made available, and I know that we've said, hey, ask some questions. I haven't seen any more come in, but please feel free to chime in, throw us some curveballs, right? We know a lot, we don't know everything, but we do like to be challenged, so please feel free to do that. But as I stated earlier on, it's important to really make sure that we continue to evolve our knowledge and tools, and really staying a couple of steps ahead of threat actors is going to have a really dramatic impact on our abilities to stay secure. It's not just about keeping up with those actors, right? It's about making sure that they need to keep up with us. So deep visibility, or deep viz for short, is a threat hunting tool that has been made available in one of our solutions, Fortify Endpoint Premium. Okay, and so it is a part of the SentinelOne solution. But what it allows us to do is again, take events that are going on inside of a system and actually take that log data and search through it. Similar to a SIEM, right, where we're going to aggregate this information together. But what it allows us to do is really compare information that we're seeing and look for any kind of oddities or anything that just doesn't quite look quite right, right? So in the scenario of Fortify, right, it's going to be commonly used in coordination with those SOC analysts. Deep visibility is going to give those MSPs such as yourselves with the ability to proactively inspect data from a number of different sources to look for any kind of questionable scenarios. Hafnium being a great example here. Go ahead and hit that next slide for me. So, and I know that slide's probably a little hard to see, but that's actually a pre-created query string that our SOC has put together. So, and really there's kind of two trains of thought when leveraging deep visibility, and the first one being a scenario like Hafnium, right? So in this real world scenario, we're going to leverage indicators of compromise or IOCs to better understand where risks may reside. So if we take that disclosed vulnerability like Hafnium, right? As a security operations organizations, we're getting these IOCs from various sources like Microsoft. We can search against those IOCs, whether they're hashes or certain types of activities. And again, specifically when we talk about Hafnium, we're actually looking at a worker process called W3WP. Right, so we're querying around that specific process, and when we're looking at that exe and we're seeing anything that's spawning similar to like PowerShell or command prompt activities, that's going to give us that visibility, no pun intended, but that's going to give us that visibility and understanding that, hey, this user is potentially at risk. So we're able to be much more proactive with these types of details that are being passed down to us from other sources above and beyond our own, similar to what Dylan was talking about with the threat hunting in SIEM. Now, secondly, and much more of a manual process, right? Our SOC analysts and MSPs can pull down all sorts of data from a time period. We'll narrow that information down based on the context of the issue. There's a number of out-of-the-box queries that you can use as well. So again, whether you're looking at a juxtaposition of incidents like registry changes being made, network connections being made, processes being leveraged, right? Our team can look for those oddities and truly hunt for those abnormalities. So it's really powerful to have turned on before something happens, right? Because if you were to be hit from a threat and say, oh, I want deep visibility to turn on, I want to see what happens, right? It's not going to do you much good. It's important to have it turned on before something happens, so that way we have that log data to look at to see what other types of scenarios might be at play here and things that we should be worried about. So with that being said, I know we're running short on time, so I wanted to save some time for Henry as well as some time to wrap up. Michael asks a great question: how do we turn it on? Michael, I'm actually going to link you up with a contact here at ConnectWise that can talk about that a little bit more, because it is a different service, but we'll get you the right information there. And it really is a particularly powerful tool, especially if you are already using Fortify Endpoint. So with that being said, pass it back off to you, Tanya, to hand this over to what's next.
Absolutely. Houston, thank you so much. And I would like to thank all of our presenters today, as well as all of our attendees for their participation and their questions and submitting them beforehand, and even some of the ones that we've had in the chat. But before I wrap up our session, because we are coming here on the top of the hour, Todd, do you mind proceeding to the next one? All right. So as I mentioned, before we wrap up this session, I would like to personally invite all of you to come and join us at the IT Nation Secure event in June. As Jay mentioned, this is going to be a hybrid event. So you have the option of coming in person or attending with your team virtually. Now, what's great about the virtual session is that everything is streamed live, and the attendees will be able to participate right there in the sessions period. So I think that's phenomenal and a great way to create a hybrid environment. Now we have 3 full days, jam-packed content of keynotes, sessions, networking events, all while following safety precautions and guidelines, obviously. And so this year's theme is controlling the chaos, which I think all of us can definitely relate to. But as we know, cybersecurity has been the fastest growing industry in the business. And that's also true of our partners, because you guys are heavily engaged in trying to understand what it looks like to build that security stack, to understand what good looks like, to package and price, to go to market with a cyber strategy on top of the existing managed services. And so now you have a lot of great opportunities to come and learn and also share ideas with each other on what's been working in that partner community, And so I urge you all, and I want to invite you all to come in and join us in person or virtually at IT Nation Secure, coming up in just a few weeks now. I know some of my presenters today, like myself and Todd Sizer, are going to be there in person, so we're looking forward to seeing the rest of you, hopefully, whether in person or virtually. Todd, do you mind proceeding to the next slide? Now, one thing that Jay wanted me to leave you guys with is some ammunition, right, when it comes to cybersecurity. So here is a slide with Jay's Fast Start Cyber Downloads. Feel free to scan that. We have the link at the bottom as well. Definitely great tools to be utilizing. So I urge all of you to take advantage of this while we're sharing it. Share it amongst your team members as well. Make the best out of the information that we are ultimately sharing with you. Now, once again, I want to thank all my participants today that presented as well, that came and joined, that really want to learn about cybersecurity, to take this as seriously as we do here at ConnectWise. And we have a few minutes left where you can go grab some coffee, grab a drink, and relax before your next meeting. But it doesn't look like there is any additional questions from our participants. So once again, I want to thank everyone. Wish them a wonderful rest of the week and stay safe.